Good afternoon and welcome to today's Tiger webinar. I'm Lydia Palmer from RIT's Division of Development and Alumni Relations, and I'm your moderator for this afternoon. We are happy to have you join us today, and we hope that you and our entire Tiger family are well. As we all continue to weather the new working environment, we want you to know that the RIT Office of Alumni Relations is available to help all RIT alumni with a variety of needs, including new virtual content, learning opportunities, and networking and career assistance through the new normal of pandemic realities. We especially encourage everyone to connect to the RIT Alumni Association social media channels, including Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter, where you will find up-to-date communications and opportunities to connect with other Tiger alumni in your region and your industry. Those links are found in the chat box, and the chat box can be opened by clicking on the chat tab at the right of your webinar window. Many in our RIT family have asked how they can help our students and the university as we respond to the pandemic, and we are incredibly grateful for those offers. There are two ways you can help. First, our new graduates and current students are seeking positions for full-time careers and co-ops. Many of these positions have been delayed or canceled entirely. If your company is hiring or would consider adding a co-op post, please contact Chris Steeler in RIT's Career Services Office and allow her to post that position in our systems. In addition, there is now an unprecedented need for financial aid scholarships for current and incoming Tiger students. If you are able, please make a gift at the link in the chat box. We thank you so much. We want to ensure that everyone is ready and familiar with the presentation tools. If you are joining from a remote location and are signed into your company's VPN, we encourage you to close that channel during the webinar to increase the quality of the transmission. The webinar platform is secure without VPN. All attendees have joined in mute mode. However, your questions can be entered in the chat box at any time throughout the discussion. We'll make every effort to address all your comments and questions throughout the webinar. You are joining this event using broadcast audio. If you wish to dial in by phone, dial-in information is provided in the chat box. Live captioning is also being provided, and you can find the link to access that in the chat box as well. This webinar will be recorded and made available, complete with captions, in approximately 1 week following today's event. All participants will receive an email with the link to the recording. If you have technical questions, please feel free to type those into the chat box as well, and we'll do our best to get you the appropriate answers. Now, on to today's webinar, Cooking 101, Fresh Spring Rolls. We are pleased to welcome two alumni with longtime members of the Division of Development and Alumni Relations. Karam is the Director of Advancement Operations and a double alumna with a BS in Information Technology and an MS in Professional Studies. Sharon Lonthair is Assistant Vice President of Advancement Operations, and she holds an MS in Human Resource Development. Anh and Sharon are swapping their traditional employee boss roles today to share this delicious recipe. This unique culinary partnership was born several years ago at RIT's first on-campus Student International Food Festival. This event celebrated delicacies from around the world that our globally connected student body shared with the campus family. The spring rolls you are about to make were offered at the only Vietnamese food stand at the festival and were awarded second place in the festival judging. Anh and Sharon encourage you all to not be afraid of making spring rolls. They are actually quite easy. Ladies, we look forward to this tasty demonstration, and our audience is all yours.
All right. Thank you very much, Lydia, for the introduction. Hello, everyone. Happy Friday. My name is Anh Karam, and I'm here with Sharon Lonthair. We welcome all of you to our very first Cooking 101 webinar, how to make fresh spring roll. Before we start, I would like to share with you a little bit about my background. I was born and grew up in Saigon, South Vietnam, and I migrated to the US many years ago. At RIT, I made spring roll to treat my colleagues many times, and they all loved it. At one point, my spring roll even got a second prize in the contest. And Sharon, you remember those days?
I do, and thank you for the opportunity for asking me long ago what I wanted with you to roll spring rolls. Since that time, I can't even begin to tell you how many spring rolls you and I have rolled together on, but it's always been my pleasure. And I will say, until we committed to doing this, I had never rolled them alone without you. So really, by inviting me to join you as your sous chef today, you really got me over the fear of rolling them by myself. So I'm really excited to be here and to partner with you today.
Right now, I think we have a little poll that we invite the participant to check to choose the answer for us. I would like to see, to learn about a little bit about you, to see if you know about spring roll before or not. Stephen? Please let me know if the poll is up.
Poll is up on. It's you have to go over to the right where it says chat and questions. There should be a poll tab to the right where to see the result.
Okay. Got it. All right. Wonderful. Well, thank you very much. It's apparently that not all of you know about the spring roll or have eaten it before. So the truth is spring roll come from different country and come into many types. And I think over the years, Sharon has a lot of knowledge about the different types of spring rolls. Sharon, can you please share?
Well, one of the things that is unique about spring rolls, depending on which Asian restaurant you go to, your spring rolls can come either hot or cold. They can come either fried or not fried. They can come wrapped in a lettuce leaf. So what An is preparing today is the traditional Vietnamese, which is wrapped in rice paper, served cold, and you can put a variety of ingredients in them. Some Chinese restaurants often will use the spring roll to denote that it's a vegetarian spring roll compared to an egg roll. So you can always keep that in mind when you're ordering.
Wonderful. The spring roll that I'm about to share with you is the authentic Vietnamese spring roll. Those that I used to eat growing up back then in Vietnam, South Vietnam. Back then, we had spring roll as the midday snack or as an appetizer. Here in the US, I think I make spring roll to my family as a meal because it has all of the nutrients that complete for the meal. It has protein, it has vegetable, it has starch. It's very lean and quite healthy with less than 100 calories per roll if you use to roll that with tofu. We have posted the ingredients online, and I hope that you have a chance to go to the market and get them. So then after this session, you can go back and try to make it with your family. Now, please excuse me for a quick second. I need to change the camera so that I can show you my ingredients.
And An, while you're doing that, I'll give you a little update on our poll. 63% of those that have responded are familiar with spring rolls but have never tried them. And then another 25% available in Asian restaurants, but again, have not tried. So, and then the other 12% are here today to learn about them and hopefully know that this version and variety is not fried, and then some are learning for the first time. So what a great mix in our audience. And feel free to ask questions throughout the session and the cooking demo. We're more than happy to answer your questions between myself and An.
Wonderful. Thank you, Sharon. So now let's talk about my ingredients. I hope that I can, my camera is good enough to show you everything. Okay, first let's talk about the rice noodle and the rice paper. As you can see, we Vietnamese love our rice as much as the Italians love their pasta. There are many there are many brands of rice paper and noodles. The brands that I like the most is the Three Bamboo brand. But if you can't find this, you can use any other brand as you choose, as long as you make sure that in the label they have the word Vietnamese roll paper or spring roll paper, and then they have the image of the spring roll. Because you might, if you don't, you might be getting home something that is not fit for the spring roll. That is the rice paper. And now to talk about the rice noodle. Well, actually, they don't have a small package. They have big packets like that. However, this one, you can use that once and then you keep it just like your pasta. You know, it's going to last you for a year or so. So you don't have to use that all at once. This, I think I used them for like almost 6 months because it's a lot. It's a lot. Next, we will talk about other ingredients, which are pork, shrimp, vegetable, and with the vegetarians, you can substitute that with tofu. And for the health conscious people, pork loin is the choice of meat. But for me, I like to have a little bit of fat in my meat so it won't really dry, so that I use a kind of pork that is next to the ribs where it has a little bit of fat on it. Then with the shrimp, you can use cocktail shrimp. You can use cocktail shrimp, but for my spring roll, I want to have a fresh shrimp. Cocktail is not for my spring roll. Sorry about that. With the tofu, you need to find the fried tofu. But if you can't, then you can buy the extra firm tofu, and then you fry them. You fry them yourself. And I hope that is clear enough for you. But anyway, when you get the tofu, you slide them about 1/4 inch to 1 inch thick. It depends on how you like to do it. Just fry them, and then you slide them into small pieces like this. And make sure that you slide them in a long string like this so that it go along well with the roll. Also, the meat, you have to slide them really thin, because if you do that, if you don't, then you will break the rice paper very easy. Let me move this so that we can talk about the vegetable. Are they delicious? Now this is the vegetable. You can use either red leaves, green leaves, romaine, or iceberg. What I have here is the iceberg. That's what I have. You can have, with the herb, you can have Thai basil. Remember, Thai basil is the purple, so it's not like the Italian basil. Make sure you do Thai basil, because otherwise you won't see the flavor. You won't taste the flavor of it. I have spearmint, and then peppermint, and this is the kind of herbs, the Vietnamese kind of herb. I don't know how to call that, but it's very good. You don't need to have all the herbs. Whatever you have in your garden or whatever you have in your refrigerator, that would be fine. You can either have just Thai basil, that would be fine too. It's just be creative. The authentic Vietnamese spring roll does not have the carrot in it. I put it in because I know many of us like to have carrot, and Wegmans, they have this already made, so you don't have to do much about it. And beans brown, this is my favorite. I love beans brown. It's very healthy, it's very good. You can slide the cucumber too. Remember, everything you have to cut it thinly, otherwise it will break the rice paper when you roll it. The other ingredient I have is for the sauce that we need to mix it. I use, let me move so I have room. I use hoisin sauce. I use 100% peanut butter. Do not use the type of peanut butter that have flavor in it, honey or some other kind, because it will mess up the taste of the sauce. I think if you don't use peanut butter, you can always use a different kind to substitute. Sharon, I know that you don't use peanut butter, so what do you use?
I selected sunflower butter. It's organic sunflower butter, and you can also use almond butter, cashew butter. But yes, if people don't eat peanuts, any type of nut butter is a good substitute.
Awesome. And last but not least, this is sriracha. You gotta have some of this. This looks scary because it's red and it look like it's hot because in the label they said hot chili sauce, but don't worry about it. They just kind of pretend to be hot. Just put a little bit in there. You can't have the sauce without the sriracha. It won't taste as good, believe me. All right. Yes.
Just to mention too, also, I selected the gluten-free hoisin sauce. So that is also an option. If you're doing your shopping at an Asian market, they're going to have a whole variety of hoisin sauce and the sriracha sauce. But if you're going to your local grocery store, you may not have as much selection, but just know that these types of products are out there for individuals who have special diets or are looking for something special in their food choices.
Yep, be creative. You know, any of the ingredients can be substituted with something else, and it's not a fixed method of anything. So don't worry about it. And the sugar, we need to have at least 2 tablespoons of sugar for every 4 tablespoons of hoisin sauce. Remember, hoisin sauce is very salty, so you have to have a little bit of the sugar in it. And if you can't use sugar, you can use sweet and low. No problem. Okay, now we have all the ingredients. Let's talk about how to prepare them. So prepare the noodles. You have to use a lot of water. And with the noodle, you use very little. I thought that I have one that I could show you. But anyway, when you open a package, there are multiple rolls within that package. So you can use half of those 1 rolls. Then it'll be enough for you. Because when you do the spring roll, you don't need a lot of noodles. You just need a little bit. However, with that 1/2 of the roll package within that package, you have to use at least 12 cups of water because if you use less water, your noodle will be sticky and it will be mushy and it's not going to taste good. When you cook the noodle, you have to make sure, you know, that it's kind of nice and firm like this. Now, when you cook the noodle, you have to boil the water first. The water have to be totally boiled in high heat. Then you put the dry noodle into the water and cook them. Make sure you stir them a couple times so that it won't stick on the bottom of the pot. Then after it's boiled again, you can reduce the heat to medium high and cook for 10 to 15 minutes. It depends on how you like the noodle taste. You test the noodle, the doneness of the noodle, just like the way you cook pasta, spaghetti. Just try to test it. It might be less than 15 minutes. It depends on how big your pot is. So in between 10 to 15 minutes to cook for the noodle, started from the time that you put the noodle into the boiling water. When the noodle's done, you use the colander to drain all the hot water out. And then you rinse that with cold water. Make sure it's cold water. And you rinse it 3 times or until the water is clear. After that, you can set it aside to let the excess water dry off. You're done with the noodle. Now, with the pork. Yes.
Quick question. Well, first off, for my noodles, this is the equivalent of about 2 flakes of noodles. So those 2 round pieces. So this is what you get when you use about 2 flakes. So as on mentioned, you do get a lot of noodles. If you wanted to prepare the noodles ahead of time, how long will they last? Or can you put a little oil on them or something so they don't get all sticky if you say you want to prepare them in the morning and use it later in the day?
Oh, that's fine. I mean, this noodle is very, can I say, resilient, but don't use oil. Please don't use oil.
Okay.
This noodle have to be like this. Don't cook like the way you cook pasta, where you have olive oil into the water. You added them into the water. Don't do that. Just plain water. And this noodle, when you have leftover, it could last up to 1 week in the refrigerator. So you can put it in a container, close the lid, and keep it in the refrigerator, and you can have them later. Or you can just have it like this and then have the plastic wrap over it and then put them in the refrigerator like this will be fine too.
We have a question. Someone is asking if we can email the recipe to everyone afterwards. And I'm going to go out on a limb and say, yes, we can do that, right?
Yes, sure. Sharon, I miss you. I lost you.
Oh,
Are we back? Okay, good. Yes, sure. I will have a document with the ingredients and tell you how to cook it, and also have some of the image about the brand name that I use, or the ingredient that you have in terms of hoisin sauce or rice paper or noodles, so that later on, maybe 3 months, 5 months, 6 months later, you want to go back and try it again, you have that document so you don't have to memorize our presentation today. Sound good?
sounds good. Thanks, Ann.
All right. Thank you, Sharon. Now we go on with the pork. With the pork, you can have as much water as needed as long as the water covered the pork. You have to make sure that the water covered the pork. The water for the pork, when you cook the water, you have to add in there 1 teaspoon salt. Then you let the water boil. When the water is really hot boil, then you add the pork into the water. The reason you do that is that when you add the pork into the boiling water like that, the outside of the pork will sear or cook first. Then it will keep the moisture with inside of the meat so that when it's done, it won't dry it out. Especially when you have the pork loin, it can be really dry and it wouldn't taste good. Okay, so that's how you do that. Boil the water hot. Add 1 teaspoon of salt into it. And then when the water is really, really boiling, you add the pork into it. Now, with the pork loin, I have a little trick for you here. As you see, I have something here for you to see. Now, the pork loin is like 1 round bunch of meat. You can slide them in half length way like this so that you can reduce the cooking time. Here you go, as you see.
You had also given good advice to me when I was buying my ingredients. Often they have the marinated pork tenderloins. You mentioned be sure to get the unseasoned, just plain pork tenderloin.
Exactly. All of the ingredients here that we have for my spring roll, make sure that you have everything pure and no additional seasoning on it. For example, about the peanut butter that I mentioned earlier, don't get the one with flavor. Get the 100% pure peanut butter. That's just the better. And earlier I was talking about a different kind of pork. So what I have here, so I will let you know in case if you don't care and you want to try it, this one. You see how the pork I have is close by the rib side, so it has a little bit of fat on it. versus this one is the pork loin, where it's just the meat and no fat and no skin. So it's up to you. You can use either or, it doesn't matter. Okay. And when you finish, when the pork is done, you have to have a bowl of cold water. And then you pick up the pork, you drop it in the cold water right away. That way, the pork, when it's cooled down, it won't get like a little dark or dry out a little dark around the rim like this or somewhere around here. It's look very doesn't look very appetizing. So cold water, drop the hot meat that you just pull out from the pot. When it's done, okay, when it's already cooked, then you pick the pork and drop it in the cold water. You don't have to soak them for anything. It just leave there for a couple minutes. Then when you're ready to slide the pork, you can take them out of the cold water pot bowl, and then you slide. And don't forget that you have to slide them thinly like this. All right?
I'm not used to boiling my meat, so that was kind of a new technique for me. And following An's instructions to bring the water to a boil, put the salt in, drop the meat in, 15, 20 minutes for a pound and a half of pork. And then as soon as you take it out, usually you can tell whether it's done. You can either use your thermometer for telling whether it's done, or just by touching it, it will be firm if it's done. And then you drop it right in the cold water. And I sliced mine probably a half hour after or so. I left it sit in the cold water until I was ready to slice it, but it definitely came out very moist and it was cooked perfectly. People like their pork all different ways. I had a little bit pink on the inside of my pork, but it still was to the temperature, so it was safe for eating.
Thanks, Sharon. One more tip that I have to mention here that I want to share with you is that sometimes when you cook the pork like barbecue or all the things, you have seasonings and stuff in it so you don't smell the meat. But if you boil the pork like this, sometimes the meat can have a different, how can I say it? It would not smell as good as the marinated pork. So what I do to counteract with that is that when the water is boiling, I add into the water, the pork, yes, excuse me. I have like a small to medium sized sweet onions, just peel it and then cut it in half, and then I drop them together with the pork. The onions will help the pork and make it taste better and smell better. So that's my trick. Now, we talk about the shrimp. This is my shrimp. If you don't have time, you can pull out the cocktail shrimp, and then it's just ready for you to roll. Doesn't matter. If not, you can buy fresh shrimp, medium size, shelf on. Make sure it's shelf on. Otherwise, when you cook the shrimp without the shelf, the shrimp will roll up really, really curly. And then it will give you a hard time to roll into the spring roll. So make sure the shrimp have the shelf on. Then after that, you can remove the shelf, and then you have the shrimp itself. And with the shrimp, there's a little bit of a way to cook. You know, you don't boil them in water or anything like that. You will get all the flavor of the shrimp and the sweetness of the shrimp away with and the nutrients too of the shrimp away with the broth that you have. Now with the fresh shrimp, the way I cook it, that I will rinse the shrimp very well. Then I put it in a small pot. I add about 1 or 2 tablespoons of water. Remember, 1 or 2 tablespoons, not cup, okay? 1 or 2 tablespoons into the pot. Add the shrimp, cover the lid, and then turn the heat high. It takes probably about 2 minutes. The water will boil, and then you kind of stir the shrimp to make sure that the top of the shrimp going down to the bottom, and then turn off the heat. Let the shrimp stay like that for a couple more minutes, then it's ready to eat. Remember, the shrimp is very fast cooking, so you don't overcook it, otherwise it wouldn't taste good. When the shrimp is done, you drop it in the same bowl of cold water that you used for the pork earlier, so that the shrimp can get, kind of cool down quickly, so you can remove the shells and then it's ready to serve. Okay. This sounds like a lot of work, but it is not. It took me a little over half an hour to prepare everything. So I have 2 pots on my stove, one for the meat and one for the noodles. The noodle will be done first, and then the pork. But with the pork, you just drop it into the cold water and then you prepare the noodles. Now, while waiting for the water to boil, when I cook for the noodles and the pork, I prepare the veggie. So, and then when the pork is done, while cutting the pork, I will cook the shrimp. It takes less than 5 minutes to make the sauce, and that's it. You have the whole meal ready. Talking about the sauce, it's time to make the sauce.
Will we be rolling after the sauce?
Yes, we will be rolling after the sauce. Yes. As Sharon mentioned earlier, there are 2 types of hoisin sauce. Basically, all of the ingredients we have for the spring roll all are gluten-free, except for the hoisin sauce. But there are gluten-free hoisin sauce at the market, so you just have to read the label carefully before you buy it. I think mine is the normal kind. It's not the gluten-free kind. Sharon, is this your gluten-free?
Mine is gluten-free.
Cool. Okay, now let's mix the sauce. Okay, I have a bowl here. And I have 3 tablespoons of peanut butter. Remember, you can use more or less. The peanut butter, it depends on how you want it. Some people, they like a lot more peanut butter taste of it, so they can put more than 3 tablespoons. That would be fine. And 4 tablespoons of hoisin sauce. 2 tablespoons of sugar. If you don't want to use regular sugar, you can use sweet and low. And the other thing to make sure you know that the sugar, the peanut butter, or the hoisin sauce can be flexible with that. It depends on your taste. You can add more or you can reduce the amount of it. That's fine. One of the trick here that I wanted to tell you, that when you put the 3 ingredients together, you have to mix them well before you add the broth in. And I think, Sharon, you learned it the hard way, isn't it?
Yes, definitely. If you have to follow any instruction to all this, definitely follow this instruction. Do your hoisin sauce, your sugar, and your peanut butter first before adding the liquid. The other thing I was going to add is I often will do a tablespoon of sugar, taste it, and then add more sugar if it needs it. Sometimes if you don't want it too sweet, you can back off on the sugar a little bit. So nice to taste it midway.
All right, here we go. I have the mixture ready. Now it's time to add some liquid on it. Normally, I would use broth, okay, the broth that you cooked the pork earlier. But if you are vegetarian, you can add water or you can add the vegetable broth. It's going to be fine. So I would add in here 1/3 cup of pork broth that I had. Then I just mix them well together.
This is a nice project if you have a helper. Your helper can make the sauce while you're doing some of the other ingredients.
That's right. That's right. I can imagine if you have like a 9, 10-year-old or 12-year-old girl at home, she'll be happy to help you mixing stuff like that. That'll be fun. It's going to be a fun project for a family gathering together, especially when you have younger kids at home.
Anh and Sharon, it's Lydia. We have a question.
Yes.
Is water hot or cold for sauce?
Cold, please. You need to use the cold water.
Yes, I used the pork broth for mine, and when I cooked the pork, I just took off like a half a cup of the broth, put it in the refrigerator, and I pulled it out just ahead of starting the demonstration today.
Okay. All right, everything is ready. Now let's roll. This is going to be a fun part. And I just have to brag about this with you. You need a big bowl of cold water or cool water. The reason I say cold or cool water is because if you are buying the brand, the 3 Bamboo brand rice paper that I have, then you need to use cool water. If you buy any other brand, you need to use warm water because any other brand, the rice paper is a lot thicker than the one that I have here. I like the rice paper to be thin, not thick. For the fun of it, I wanted to introduce you this. This is the bowl that I use for the rice paper, and then the water will be in here for me to dip it in. So let me show you. It's right here. See, this is the pocket where I can get the rice paper. And this is how I dip it in here. But if you don't have this special bowl, then you can use any kind of bowl. That's fine. As long as you roll the rice paper around, make sure that it's all wet all over.
And Anh, I can show, here's my size bowl. A pie plate works really nicely. This is a little bit bigger than a pie plate. But yeah, I'm gonna get me one of those bowls you have, Anh.
Awesome, Sharon. I wanted to see it. When you get that, let me know.
I will do that.
Okay. Are you ready to roll, Sharon?
I dipped mine.
All right, let's dip in.
And definitely after you dip it in the water, and you're going to roll it, set it on a china plate. Don't set it on a paper plate. You know, sometimes if you have a lot of people over, you might be serving, you know, with paper. Definitely set it on a china plate. Otherwise it sticks to the paper. Makes sense, but you know, I had to do it by trial and error, right?
That's right. That's right. Okay, so what do you want me to roll first, Sharon?
I think you should do the shrimp there. Go right to the good stuff.
All right, good stuff that is. Okay, the way to roll this is the whole. I have to move it so that you can see it better. Okay, this is the whole rice paper. Is that big at my place here. And for you to see the shrimp outside of the roll, you have to do this way. And I'm going to demonstrate for you. You get a little bit of rice noodle. And then you put in this, a couple pieces of mint and basil. And then you can have 1 piece of lettuce. And with the shrimp, you have to do it this way. Like put the shrimp in the middle of the roll. So when you're done rolling, you can see the shrimp showing. And the meat, you can put it on top of that shrimp. That'll be fun. I can imagine that you guys try to use this as a fun game for your family. Now let's roll. Pick up this, cover the vegetable and the noodle, then roll this over the meat. When it's over the meat, then you go ahead and turn the side in. On this side too, turn the side in. Now, if you want to have chive, you can add it on this way. Now continue to roll. And we have, well, look at that. It didn't look as good as I wanted to. But anyway, this is the way you roll it. And let me do one more with the tofu.
Don, after you roll this one, I think we should ask the audience if anybody's got to their rolling yet and how's it going for them.
Oh my goodness. I have to do it quick though. If I do it too slow, then I'm just
quicker than this.
I'm just so used to do it, so that it's kind of hard for me to do it slowly. Alrighty, a little bit of bean sprout and tofu. Now get this. And the other thing too that I want to remind you all is that don't overstuff the roll, because if you overstuff the roll, it will be too big to eat, or maybe you can break the rice paper, and then you will have to double it. So in case if the rice paper broke, you just have to get another rice paper and then roll on top of that broken rice paper. So don't worry about it. Okay. If you don't roll it correctly or it's broke a couple times, that's fine. I mean, you know, it takes time to practice. My children, when they roll them together, they stuff everything into the roll and it's got really, really big. And then after that, they have to double the rice paper. And then after that, they call this the Vietnamese burrito because it's so big. Any questions?
Let's see if there's any questions.
I think they're all eating.
I am not sure.
I don't see any questions, but rollers, tell us how it's going.
I'm not. Sorry, go ahead.
Yes, if there is anyone who's trying this at home, let us know how it's going. And if you do have any questions for Anh or Sharon about how these delicious spring rolls are made, just go ahead and enter them in the chat box. We have just a couple more minutes to go here. You ladies can keep rolling.
I've got 3 made already, a little messy, but.
Okay, here's my spring roll. Here is the hoisin sauce and the sriracha. You're gonna do it this way. There you go. And for me, I like to have a little bit of peanut butter. This is optional on top of it. Make it look a lot better. How does it look?
Anh, can I just say, here's my tray. I've made 3. Then if you're trying to plan to make them for like a party or something, be careful not to put them right next to each other because they are a little sticky and the rice paper will stick to one another. So just leave a small space in between your tray, or even sometimes you can decorate your tray with some of your herb leaves. And that'll help to keep the spring rolls from becoming attached to one another.
So on just one quick question. There's a question to clarify what the long green item was. Did you say that was chive that you added in?
Yes, this is the Chinese chive. Let me show
Chinese
you
chive.
closer. Yep, it's Chinese chive, not the chive that American have. I think there's another kind of chive that American has.
Okay, and there's a
But this
question.
one is the.
Oh, go ahead.
But this one is a Chinese chive.
And a question about, are you able to store them without them getting, really hard and chewy?
Yes, you can. What you could do is when you have them roll like this, put them in a place, and then you have paper towel, wet paper towel. You cover that and then wrap it up with the plastic wrap. Then you can store it. And don't put them in the refrigerator because this will be too cold. It wouldn't taste good. So if you roll it like this, you put the wet paper towel on top of that, and then you put some plastic wrap cover it. You can leave it at room temperature for up to 3 hours.
It's great. It looks like the biggest challenge people are having is the rolling. There must be, a practice technique involved in getting that to work.
Yes.
And, the other thing that we're wondering is if you were going to do something like this for an appetizer, would you roll them full size and then cut them in smaller slices? Or do you think you would cut the paper and just roll them initially much smaller? I think you could do it either way.
No. You don't cut the rice paper first. The reason is because it's too small. It's very hard for you to put all of the ingredients you have here, especially with the a lot of herbs and vegetable that we have here. So my suggestion to you is that you roll it and then you cut it in half only. You don't cut it into small pieces. Cannot cut into small pieces. The most you can do is cut it in half.
Okay. Great.
After this, I think I will post, I don't think I can post it, but I have a file with the ingredients, including the images, so that you can remember what you're supposed to look for, and how to cook the meat, and how to cook the noodles, and how to cook the fresh shrimp. So later on, maybe, 3 months, 6 months later, and you wanted to try to do it, then you have the document to go back to, so you don't have to memorize this today's presentation.
Yeah, so we did post we did post the ingredients in the chat box for those of you who cannot wait to get the email. But in the interim on, perhaps you can put that info sheet together, and we will include that as an attachment to the email that we send out that also has the link to the recording. And that'll come out in about a week or a week and a half.
Okay, well, that's a good idea. You know what? The other thing that I wanted to mention about rolling the spring roll is that if you have a family gathering together, you can have the whole thing here on the table, and then everybody will gather together, and then you guys can roll. And of course, the first time trying, probably that will be very fun. It's the ingredient will fall all over the places. It's going to be very fun, a very fun thing to do together as a family.
We got a nice note from Ruth Ann. She says, this was amazing, very easy to follow. So hopefully you are rolling and you have some beautiful spring rolls to show, Ruth Ann.
Thank you very much, Ruth Ann.
This is great. Sharon, it looks like you've got dinner ready.
I know, right?
Yeah.
I'm loving this. My family will, after I take the webinar in progress off of the door and they can come into the house, at least there's dinner to eat, Mom.
And it is Friday, so I'm not sure what wine goes with spring rolls, but
look at me. I am a 90% chance of wine.
Yeah, Stephen, we'll have to switch An's camera back to her so you can see that.
Okay.
She's been working hard with her chef's apron on. So, well, we thank you all for joining us today, and we thank Sharon and An for just a really great end to our work week and a delicious treat that we can all enjoy over the weekend. In honor of tonight's presentation, Sharon and An are asking that you consider supporting the RIT Food Share, which is a free food shelf on campus for some of our students and other RIT community members who are food insecure. So if you want to take a look at the link in the chat box, that'll tell you a little bit more about what's going on in Food Share. The other alternative is the International Hospitality and Service Management Program, which just started recently as part of the Saunders College of Business. And that is another area that is an interesting opportunity for you to support RIT. As I mentioned, you will all receive an email from us in about a week with the link to today's webinar recording, and we will include the ingredient listing in that. If you have any additional questions, you can email them to ritalum@rit.edu. and we will direct your questions to our presenters. We invite you to visit a full listing of upcoming virtual events like today's webinar at rit.edu/alumni/tigers-staying-home. There's quite a listing of events. We hold several each week, and we want to include you in as many as possible. As we've reached the end of our webinar, please feel free to exit the webinar by simply closing the browser window and let us know what you thought through a brief survey that you will receive at via email after you have closed out. There is An's 90% chance of wine chef's apron. So I think that's a good way to send us off for our Friday end of the work week. We hope everyone has a wonderful weekend, and please stay safe and healthy. Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Bye.